I want you to imagine your favorite 80-year-old relative, the one who's always been there, always had your back, a real safety net for your entire life. Now, what if that same relative was, well, an incorrigible spendthrift? Someone whose generosity is so huge, it's actually leading them down a path to financial ruin. That, right there, is pretty much the story of France's social security system, the famous sécu.
So, let's just get right to it. Can the sécu, this absolute cornerstone of French identity, actually die? I know, it sounds super dramatic, but here's the thing. France's own Court of Audit has officially called its financial path unsustainable. So today, we're going to unpack this crisis and figure out how a system built to provide security has somehow become one of our biggest sources of national anxiety.
You see, the whole problem really starts with this national paradox we have. There's a completely split perception of what the secure even is. On the one hand, it's a national treasure, but on the other, it's a total source of stress.
And you can see this split perfectly in just the words we use. When you think about what the sécu does, it's all good things, right? Healthcare, pensions, sick leave, getting your money back for doctor's visits. But when you think about its condition, the words that pop into your head are way darker. Debt, deficit, fraud, decline. This weird split creates this feeling of social insecurity, which is the exact opposite of what the whole system was designed for in the first place.
To really get how we ended up here, we have to go back, way back. Let's rewind the clock to 1945. France is just coming out of the war, and people are desperate for some stability, some reason to be confident about the future.
And this was the founding promise. The official text from 1945 that created the sécu literally said its goal was to preserve the worker from the uncertainty of tomorrow. I mean, the ambition was just massive, to give people the widest possible protection against all of life's curveballs, from getting sick to getting old.
And here is the biggest irony of this whole story. The system was a wild, spectacular success. It worked so well, in fact, that its very success is what's causing the crisis today. Let's just look at the numbers.
Okay, so back in the 1950s, life expectancy was hovering around 67. This meant if you retired at 65, on average, you'd only be collecting your pension for a couple of years.
Now, fast forward to today, thanks in large part to the fantastic healthcare the sécu provides, we live to be about 85. That's a huge win, but it also means that many people now spend more years in retirement than they ever did working. Think about that, and that puts just incredible pressure on the pension system. And the cost of that success is staggering. Back in the 50s, all this social spending was a pretty modest 6% of the country's total wealth. Today, it's 32%. Nearly a third of everything France produces in a year goes to this. That is a world record.
And it's not just about living longer. It's also about the absolute explosion in medical progress. In 1950, you had about one doctor for every 1,400 people. Today, it's one for every 300. We've gone from a handful of available medicines to over 13,000. And some of those are incredibly expensive, high-tech treatments. Again, it's an amazing success story, but a very, very expensive one.
So, the inevitable result is this pattern of constant deficits. The money coming in just can't keep up with the money going out. The sécu hasn't had a single year in the black, not one, since 2001. And whenever there's a crisis, like in 2010 or during COVID in 2020, the deficit just explodes. But even in the good years, the system is still deep in the red.
All right, so if the original model isn't working, how are we even paying for all this? Well, the funding system has been totally transformed over the years. And in the process, it's changed the very DNA of the sécu itself.
See, originally, the deal was simple. It was basically an insurance system. You paid contributions from your salary, and in return, you got benefits. Straightforward. Back in the 90s, these direct contributions from paychecks made up over 90% of the funding. A clear, direct link.
Now look at the picture today. Direct contributions, they're less than half the funding. The rest is cobbled together from general taxes, like the CSG. That's a big social tax on almost all income, plus a slice of the VAT, taxes on stuff like tobacco and alcohol, and direct handouts from the state. That clear link between what you pay in and what you get out, it's been completely severed. We've shifted from an insurance model to an assistance model, funded by everybody through a web of taxes.
And this new system, well, it creates an illusion that it's all kind of free because the true cost is totally hidden. For an employee to actually take home a net salary of 2,000 euros, their employer has to spend 3,300 euros. A full 1,300 euros just vanishes into the system before that employee even sees their paycheck. That massive cost is almost totally invisible to most people.
And this, of course, creates some very real social tension. It's been perfectly captured by this internet meme of Nicholas. He's the symbol of the young, well-paid, but heavily taxed worker who feels like they're just paying for everyone else, whether they contribute or not. It's a sign of this growing resentment, this divide between those who feel they're funding the system and those who are benefiting from it.
So, with costs just going up and the funding model totally broken, where does this all end? The Court of Audit has a pretty stark warning. They call it a slow death by financial asphyxiation.
The key risk, and this is straight from their official report, really just boils down to this. There might come a day when the financial markets, the people who lend us money to cover the deficit year after year after year, simply say, no more. If the CQ can't borrow money, it can't pay its bills. It is really that simple.
So what do you do? I mean, every single option on the table is a brutal choice. Do you reduce coverage and just pay people back less? Do you increase contributions and risk more unemployment? Do you make people work longer? Or do you raise taxes even higher in a country that's already one of the most taxed in the world? There are absolutely no easy answers here.
And that leads us right into the political trap. Politicians, they know what the options are, but they are terrified of the backlash at the ballot box. Retirees are the single most powerful voting bloc in the country, and they show up to vote. That's why we've seen 5 pension increases in just 3 years, even while the system is bleeding cash. Honestly, every leader knows what probably needs to be done, but not a single one knows how to do it and still get reelected.
Which leaves us all with this really fundamental question, which the philosopher Marcel Gauchet put perfectly. I want the rights, but not the duties. How do we get out of this? We all want the maximum protection the CQ can offer, but are we, as a society, really and truly willing to accept the sacrifices needed to pay for it? That is the big, unresolved question at the very heart of this crisis.